Hey, everyone. Welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Real Bosses series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguzza, and I am here with Real Boss, Mr. Tom Dheere. Hello, Tom Dheere. How are you?
I am good, Ann Ganguzza. How are you?
I'm awesome, Tom. I'm noticing the specs. Are they new?
Yes. I got new glasses. These are my walking around, driving regular glasses. These aren't the ones I normally wear because these are the ones I normally wear when I'm sitting at my desk based on distance. And then I've got another pair in the booth for with that distance to the monitor. Well, it's just I'm old. That's what's going on here.
Well, Tom, as we speak, I've got
God,
4 pair. I actually have 5 pair of glasses in the studio, and so I can respect your specs.
Respect my specs.
There we go.
That's great. Thanks.
So, new specs aside, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I mean, a lot of people had a really slow summer. August and September definitely picked up. But something interesting and not great happened this week that I want to share with you and our fellow bosses. So for those of you who don't know, the services that I as the VO strategist provide, one of the things I do is a 1-hour diagnostic. And basically, you fill out a Google form with a whole bunch of questions about every part of your business model. And then I review your website and your demos and your social media profiles and your casting site profiles. And I asked a bunch of other questions. And so I had a lovely student this past week. And as part before, I go through the website and the demos and stuff like that. And I'm listening to their demos, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Oops.
I don't know if I told you this, but when I evaluate demos all the time, and I'm sure you have your grading standards. I have I put everybody into 3 categories. Not serviceable, or competitive. So competitive is this is a great demo. You can send it to a New York or LA agent immediately. Sure. Serviceable, and there's a big spectrum of serviceable, which is it's not ready for prime time with high-end agents, but you can easily put it on a casting site, send it to an explainer video production company, chop it up and put it on your Voice 123 profile, and it's good and you can do stuff with it. And then there is not serviceable, which is this does not reflect your talent, this does not reflect your technique, this does not reflect your a good recording environment and all of that stuff.
Well, I love that you offer a service, a paid service for that. And one thing I'll note is because you mentioned that I do also offer a demo evaluation, and it is a paid service. And I offer it as a paid service because I want to spend time. It's actually I spend time. You spend, I think, an hour with your students, right?
Oh yeah.
Doing that. It's a half an hour or an hour, and I spend time really kind of picking apart whatever they're asking me to the demo they're asking me to evaluate, because I don't want them to feel like I'm trying, because I am a demo producer. I don't want them to feel like that I'm pressing them to buy a new demo, because if you ask a demo producer, well, how's my demo, right? They're going to critique it. That's just the way it is.
Well, you need a new demo, of course.
Exactly. And I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to sell them on something. So I feel like if they pay me for my time, right, then it will be, I'll be able to give them constructive criticism in an environment that is not just like, oh yeah, I heard it and yeah, no, and that kind of thing. So I love that you offer a service, and I think that that's a very fair way to evaluate a student, and I'm sure you come up with solutions for them and what they should do from
right. Well, absolutely, because
from your evaluation.
Because yes, your voiceover demo is obviously a reflection of your talent. It's a reflection of your performance skills, your genre proficiency, but it's also a reflection of your recording environment, because when people voice seekers these days, when they listen to your demos, they're also listening to the environment that it was recorded in, because the odds are all your auditions and bookings will come out of your home recording environment. And it is a marketing tool. It is, and how do you use the demo as, in addition to how the demo is comprised. And, some spots are better than others, and some genres you're more proficient at, and all the things. So anyway, I listened to the demos, and then when I gave feedback, I asked, tell me about the coaching process.
Sure.
And who did you work with? And I will not tell you the name of the coaches or of the organization that produced the demos or the talent, for all the reasons. But they said that, and I will give you the numbers, is they spent $3,000 on 4 coaching lessons, which produced 2 full demos and 1 wild spot. I'm going to say it again.
Yep.
$3,000, 4 lessons.
Yeah.
2 genre demos with 5 or 6 spots each.
And how long were the lessons? Because sometimes the lessons are 30 minutes.
They were 1 hour each, so it was
okay.
So 4 hours of coaching.
I always tell the people who are asking me, I'm like, look, how much coaching did you have? It's like it's such a logical thing to ask, because you are being judged on your performance and the sound and everything that you mentioned before. And so it makes sense to say, what was your experience? How long did you train for this? And 4 hours of your life studying to be a voice actor is, I think we just have to be real here. It's nothing. It's half a work day.
It's a football game.
How can you be? It's a couple of shows on Netflix. How can you expect to be a voice actor and competitive if you've only trained for 4 hours? That to me is, I always ask people, be real. You spent 4 hours of your life training, and you can't expect to, be at a place where most voice actors who have been doing this their entire lives, who have had tens of thousands of hours put into it, in auditioning and practicing and coaching. It's not realistic.
No, it's not realistic, and the demos reflected it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that one of the demos is completely it's like unserviceable. Mm-hmm. They cannot use this demo. What was weird about it is that 2 of the spots on this commercial demo were promo spots.
Ooh.
One of the spots was an imaging spot. Imaging, for you bosses who don't know, is when you identify a radio or television station, which is technically broadcast, but it's not advertising. It's station
commercial.
Identification. It's like compliance. And promo is, tonight on The Simpsons, or, in a world.
Completely different genres. We're talking 2 different genres.
Right. So there were 3 spots that were put on this too long of a demo that weren't even of the commercial genre.
Well, okay. That aside, because I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
I assume there was a narration demo. And
there
then
was a narration demo.
That also had a mishmash of different narration genres, because they're mixing genres on the demo.
That's why. What was also interesting is that the demo was labeled narrative.
Yeah.
Which not a term I've ever heard of in voiceover circles.
Yeah.
So
it's a word.
That was another.
It's a word, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a word.
A lot of words I could think of to describe the training that this poor person got.
Yeah.
So I had to be honest, because otherwise what's the point of doing this? I said, I'm sorry, but the narrative demo was barely serviceable. There were a couple of spots. Now, also, there's a component to this, is that the talent in question has a wonderful sound, a great voice, a wonderful, wonderful vocal quality, intelligent, smooth, engaging, but no technique whatsoever. Did not know how to use the instrument at all.
Not after 4 hours. You're lucky that you can kind of just figure out scripts.
Well, that's the thing.
Across the genres in that amount of time, really, and read a couple of different examples to try to find out. And so I will admit to the bosses here too, is that Tom was gracious enough to send this person along to me for further consultation to see if maybe there was a coaching possibility. And I also listened to those demos. And so, what was so interesting for me is that everything was a mishmash. The commercial demo was much longer than what typically we use as a standard in the industry. And so, number one, that's the first thing I kind of saw when I looked at the website, was it was super long. And the fact that there was a mix of genres in that demo was absolutely a red flag, because that doesn't make it serviceable for today's industry. She's never going to be able to get an agent with that demo. And that's typically what you want with your commercial demo. And narrative demos I've seen before, right? I've seen the mix of the genres. And I think, okay, it's fine for a beginner demo, right? You can show a mix of, corporate, explainer, medical, maybe a little documentary. And so you have a mix of each. However, if you really want to be marketable and competitive, there's multiple genres. And so one spot, it's a good start initially, but not ideal. not ideal. And those demos, yes, you're right, were not serviceable. Those demos were not serviceable. I can talk. I am a voice actor. Simply due to the fact that her performance wasn't there. It just wasn't there. She was not a storyteller.
No.
She did have a gorgeous voice, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and what was also just, personal sidebar is that, I listened to all the demos by myself. I give the feedback in a one-on-one environment. And then if I think they need additional coaching or a different perspective, I refer them to Anne or other fabulous coaches out there. So the nervousness of me thinking, is it just me? Is this demo fine? And then when I spoke to Anne about it, she echoed everything that I had said without knowing that's what I had thought. So it was very nice to know that we were on the same page. And also,
we were.
I'm concerned about the talent, because the talent just got taken for a ride to the tune of $3,000. And now there's other coaches saying, you need a new demo.
Sure.
So
now,
I'm just like,
now there needs to be another investment, which is a lot of money when you get done with all that.
Yeah.
Because, while $3,000 for, a couple of demos might not be unheard of in the industry, because a competitive demo price can be anywhere from $1,500 through $3,000 to sometimes more. But it just is, of course, being produced before the talent was ready, and that is the typical issue with most. Can I say it? Did we say the word?
We haven't
demo
said
mills?
it yet. Say it.
Did we say the word demo mills? And that is their specific business is about producing demos. That's a high-ticket item, and that's what they do. And they will pretty much take business from anybody who comes to them and says, I would like a voiceover demo. And that's what they do.
Yeah, demo mill. That is the term. Now, not all demo producers, even demo producers who create a high volume of demos, are not necessarily demo mills.
Exactly.
So let's talk about, and we've touched on some of them, like the red flags. What are the things to look for when you're vetting a demo production company? What should you be looking for? What do you think? What's the first thing you look for?
Well, and what categorizes, a production house as a demo mill?
Well, sure.
Yeah. Number one is when I listen to the demo, is it within industry standards of today? Is it relevant? Is it current? Is it following trends? That's kind of number one. But maybe what number one is actually the performance that I hear on the demo. That's got to be the first thing that I listen for, really. As a coach, I listen for performance and acting. And if I don't hear it, then I immediately say, I will ask the question, how much coaching have you had? Now, we all have to start somewhere, Tom. I am a firm believer in that. And of course, you may not want to hear my first demo that I ever created. We absolutely get better as we train and as we go on in our careers. However, I think there has to be a level of competency before you make that demo, and that requires an investment in coaching. And these places that are producing demos without selling that coaching, then they just shine out to me like a beacon saying, we're just here to make the money for the demos. And so the first thing, if I listen to a demo that I am absolutely listening to is, well, first of all, is it relevant? Is it current? And what's the performance of the talent?
And when Anne's referring to industry trends, the length of the demo reconciled with the genre in question. So, for example, your typical commercial demo is going to be roughly 60 seconds. Some a little short. So, and we're talking 5, maybe 6 spots on that demo. So we're talking 10 to 12 to 15 seconds per spot.
Or if they're shorter and they're a tagline, you might have a shorter tagline mixed in there.
Like a 6-second, right.
But yeah,
or
you don't
15,
want it to be much more than a minute 10 seconds maybe at most, because most agents, or casting directors, they know what they're listening for, and they don't want to hear a long, drawn-out demo. That's just not...
Right.
Yeah.
Now, some demos based on genre should be longer. Like now your e-learning, corporate, industrials, those should be, and tell me if you disagree, roughly around 2 minutes or so.
I'm like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, so it's in the neighborhood. Because you need a little more time, because there's a little more there's a little more storytelling
Sure.
in an e-learning because
Right.
with commercials you're selling and there's a very specific formula. But with e-learning and corporate industrial, you're teaching, coaching, guiding, instructing.
And
so
you are also selling in some corporate narration. You're selling the brand, you're selling a product, but it just is not limited to 60 seconds.
Right.
So the close is not as quick, and so it's much more nuanced.
Right.
And you do have to, there is more of a story. There's more time to tell that story, or there's more time to make that sale. And so you have to showcase in the demo the arc of that. So the spots are typically longer.
Exactly. And then audiobook, well, there really isn't proper audiobook demos, but audiobook samples should be longer. Sure. Those spots, the audiobook samples should be 30 seconds to a minute and a half per spot because you're literally storytelling and you need to be able to demonstrate you can do dialogue and have a conversation or paint a picture with describing a scene, that sort of thing. Oh, also like political demos should be about a minute. Explainer demos should be about a minute. Imaging and promo probably should be about a minute. In-show narration should probably be longer, like narrating a documentary or a reality show or a competition show. So that's a big red flag. If you're listening to a demo of a certain genre and just looking at the time code like Ann did, because I also noticed it was like a minute and 42 or a minute and 43. And my first instinct was like, ooh, that's too long. Because there's only so many muscles that you can flex in a commercial demo anyway. Can you do the hard sell? Can you sell the car and the chocolate and the toilet paper and the pantyhose or the Uggs or the whatever it is? So it doesn't need to be that long. So that's definitely the time reconciled with the genre.
And performance, right?
Yeah.
What is the one thing we're looking for? We're looking for an actor. We're not looking for somebody to announce. And that is so obvious in a demo spot. It is very obvious to those that have been working in this industry for a while, for coaches, for people like Tom and myself, and this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. And it's very obvious to tell if that person is simply got a great voice and they're maybe reading it, or if they've got a great voice and they're announcing it. And that is something that, you could do that in a 4-hour, you could absolutely create demos with those 4 hours of training.
Right.
And a lot of times I will ask the student to say if they wouldn't mind to, who coached you or who produced this, if you don't mind me asking. And usually they'll tell me. Sometimes they won't. But I've gotten to know over the years the styles of some of these, places and how they produce demos. And so I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's, 5 spots. There's this type of a spot. There's another spot. It's because demo producers, I think we kind of know each other's styles. And so we also know the styles of studios that produce demos. Now, I'm the first one to say, look, you're a studio. You want to offer demo production services, right? That is a valid business. It's a valid business. However, if you're going to offer the demo, and some people would say, hey, these people, that's what they wanted. They're getting what they paid for. But are they getting a product that is competitive in this industry, a product that really represents them so that they can get work? And that, I think, is where the mission fails on these studios, because they're not delivering a product that is going to be able to get this student work.
Yeah, there's another red flag, Ann, which is, did you write the scripts in collaboration with the coaches, or did they just come to you with
and
scripts?
Give them, to you.
Now, could the demo producers be brilliant copywriters, and after having a lesson or 4 with you and getting a really good idea of what would be the best genres or subgenres or conversational style or whatever, and then go off and write scripts and come back? But I've learned that more often than not, they just have a stock library of scripts and they just grab whatever and put it in front of them.
Yeah, and also when you're working on a script that you've never seen before and somebody hands it to you and says, here, this is going to be on your demo, you haven't really had time to identify with that script or really in your head as a new beginner, work out the acting that's required to really tell the story or teach the lesson or make the sale. So you're just given this copy and then ultimately being directed through that copy in a session to produce typically more than one demo. And I don't know how long that demo session is, but for me, my demo sessions are a little bit longer because I want to make sure that this demo is going to be representative of the talent. It's going to be, I want to have multiple options so that when I put the demo together, I can really give the widest amount of variety and acting that will help to get that talent work. And so I will actually have a session that is maybe longer than an hour for maybe a narration demo. That's just kind of the way I operate. And so I feel like that is where maybe the integrity of the producer comes into play, because you want to get to know the person that you're directing, if you can, right? If you're a vetted talent and you've been doing this for years, you don't need to know the talent to be able to direct them. But if you're going to produce a demo for these people and you want it to be customized to their voice, where do they fit in the marketplace? The more time you spend with them, the better it's going to be. That's just kind of human nature, right? The more I get to know a person, the more I can vocally brand them, and the more that I can strategize with them to help create a spot and multiple spots on their demo that will get them work.
I agree. There's one more thing I want to add, and I don't know how often this happens. You could probably tell me, but this particular student in question that we're talking about, they do not have any home recording equipment. They do not have a home recording booth. Mm-hmm. They do not have a DAW. They had to rent a professional recording studio and get remotely directed. So they had to take money out of their pocket to get the demo. Now, is there anything intrinsically wrong with that? Probably not, but what's the point of getting all these lessons, or only 4 lessons, and putting out all this money to get a demo and you don't have
a studio?
So what do you do? And how long does it take?
And a studio, it's not something you put up overnight. And especially when you're beginning, because you have no idea what you're listening for. You don't know what good sound is, really. I know when I first started, I had no clue. I didn't go to school to be an audio engineer. That was just, there's an echo? For me, that was like, okay, all right. I didn't know. And the first time I remember I submitted something, they're like, oh no. Oh no, this is not acceptable audio. And I was mortified. I remember I was mortified, and I'm like, oh, okay. So what do I need to do? And thus began, right, my initial quest when I was, so long ago, to create a studio, which is in and of itself something that I think you need help with, especially, a professional audio engineer can help you to listen to that sound. Because again, you don't have the ears to know if you've got good sound, just like I didn't. You don't know the sound that people are looking for or expect to be a competitive voice actor in the industry. And therefore, when you set that up, that studio up, you're going to need help evaluating it to see, is my sound okay? Am I going to be able to produce sound? And what's the use of having a great demo if you're not going to be able to go into a studio, or if you're going to have to rent a studio each and every time? First of all, that's not practical. That's what a lot of people a long time ago used to think. If I get a great demo, I'll just rent out a studio. Well, we all know in practicality that is not, this just doesn't work, because you've got to audition first, and that audition has to have great quality audio for the most part. And so if you're going to run to a studio each time you have to audition for something, that's going to become costly really quickly and inconvenient as well. You're not always going to be able to get that studio at the time you want. But these demo meals don't tell them that. They don't say, you're going to need a professional. Or if they do, maybe they're like, here, buy our bundle. And then where's the support, right? When the student is putting that together, do they offer support to say, okay, that's a good sound? And I honestly don't think the majority of them do offer that kind of support in terms of setting up your studio. So I've got a great demo, but I got no place to record it.
Right. So with all that in mind, we should probably tell everybody, what are the things to look for? Or, let's say, we kind of did all that, but what happens? Let's say, Anne, I'm sure you've had this before. Someone like the student that I referred you to came to you and said, I spent all this money, I only got a few lessons, and I got stuck with a terrible demo. I didn't finish paying for all of it, or I did pay for all of it. What kind of recourse do I have? What can I do?
Well, I think the first time when you buy anything, right, don't we look for, okay, is there a return policy? No, look, when I'm shopping for clothes in a store, believe it or not, I went to one store. I was like, no, you don't return here. You just get store credit. And I'm like, oh. So always know what the return policy is. I think that's important. When you buy anything, know what the return policy is. And if there is terms of service, I know that on my on my website, I have terms of service. I offer a full refund if you're not happy. And again, I make sure that I'm working with the student long enough that we'll know each other and we can talk to one another if they don't like the script, if they're not hitting the script, they don't understand, or they're not doing a good job. We communicate with one another. And so therefore, I've never had somebody come to me and say, I want a refund for this demo. Never. And I think it's just because I know them so well and they know me so well, and we can I'm very clear about communication. You let me know if you don't like that spot you're not identifying. So first of all, make sure you know what the policies are, and that's just a good rule of thumb for buying anything. Yeah. And right, I just think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good start.
You must, before you can produce a demo, you must be trained. I'm sorry, but and 4 hours is not enough for any genre. And even sometimes for people who've been working in the industry for a few years, sometimes 4 hours isn't enough if they haven't worked in a genre long enough and they're not familiar, because every genre exists because there's a different buyer and there's different content, right? And you have to understand who the buyer is and how to talk to them. Like a corporate demo, how are you going to talk to a B2B, right? Versus a commercial really is mostly B2C. And so how do you talk to them differently? How do you sell to them differently? And that's just an example from corporate to commercial. But in reality, promo, you're speaking to a different audience. And animation, you've got a different audience. You've got different content for each. Some is much, I'm not going to say easier, but some is once you understand the audience, you understand the content and the type of content, it then becomes easier for you to voice that content because you understand it. You understand the flow of it. You understand who you're talking to. You understand who you are as an actor with it. So, policies and coaching.
Yeah, and if you can't, based on the terms of service, get your money back, you should be able to say, well, I want more lessons until I'm satisfied and I feel like that my skills are strong enough that I can put forth, we can record a proper demo that will actually have a potential for them to get work. I would also say that if you are having trouble with the demo mill in question, you can always reach out to your local Better Business Bureau. You can also check with your state's Consumer Protection Board or see if they have a similar mechanism or institution and say, look, this is what happened. Because the problem with this is that, on a legal thing, and I talked to a legal friend of ours about this, is that, the student agreed to the terms, a deposit was made, the lessons were given, the demos were recorded.
They got what they paid for.
And they were delivered.
Yep.
So there's not much that one can do about that. And unfortunately, the vast majority of voice actors who go through this didn't know what they didn't know before they went and took them up on this deal. So now it's a matter of, trying to get the toothpaste back in the tube, the manure back in the horse back in the barn to get their money back, or at least get satisfaction with what they did pay for.
And then, if they're going to get it evaluated, that's where they might find, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that you need more sessions or you need more coaching. Hopefully, people are listening to this podcast and they're thinking about getting into the voiceover industry, and they know now, right? It's not something that you can do in just a weekend or a few hours. It is something that really takes some time to develop those skills so that you can be competitive in the industry. And so they may not know at the time, they may not have heard of this podcast, right? Or maybe they didn't hear what we said. Hopefully they do. And they don't know to even ask for more sessions. And then all of a sudden they paid for it, they've gotten it, and then they try to go out and market it. And then unfortunately they find out then that it's not marketable. That's the point where, you might want to talk to the Better Business Bureau, talk to somebody else in the industry, get their opinions on it, and then find out what can you do now. If there's nothing you can do legally to get a refund, I always tell my students, look, we all start somewhere. And I would rather that you now, you know, if nothing else, you are now educated. And so you can move forward now. And that is something is make the investment, understand that your voice is a product. That is an investment. If you had a storefront, you would have to buy inventory. You would have to pay rent. If it were a physical storefront, there would be lots more money that would be involved. I'm not saying $3,000 isn't a lot of money. However, you have to understand that it's a business. And Tom, that's what you're all about. And that's obviously what I'm all about too. But people have to understand it is a business. There is investment to be made. And sometimes it's more than $3,000. You know, by the time you're all done with it.
Yeah. I'm really glad we talked about this. I think this is something that, you know, of course I want everybody to listen to the VO Boss podcast. But for those of you who are listening or watching, spread this one far and wide. Try to reach people who are considering voiceover or very early in their journey. This could save them a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of headache. Absolutely.
Tom, I mean, we could talk about this forever, but... this was a great conversation. I am so glad that we decided to discuss this with the bosses. Bosses, I hope you guys have an amazing week. And before I do that, I must mention my sponsor, IPDTL. You too can become a real boss like Tom and myself. Find out more at IPDTL.com. And bosses, have an amazing week. And spread this wide and far to anybody you know that might be considering getting into the voiceover industry. So, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Ann.
Bye, bosses.